Hello fans, collectors, investors, welcome back to Iconic Baseball. I'm Iconic Al, and this is my countdown. This is my collection. I've chosen to focus my collection on the top 100 greatest and most iconic ball players in baseball history. I've been sharing that list one player at a time for the past 2 years or so thank you for joining me. Please subscribe if you are not already, if you want to keep up with this countdown and continue to follow my hobby journey. Today we are standing on hallowed ground. At number 7 on my list, this is a player who is very special, a man who is very special. There are guys throughout the history of the sport who have compiled great stats. Think Stan Musial. There are guys who have amazing postseason resumes, iconic moments. Think Reggie Jackson. And then there are players that capture true human emotion and elicit true passion from fans. Something about their story is truly captivating. Think Jackie Robinson. Think Roberto Clemente. This guy has it, that human connection. We all know about that speech this man delivered to a tearful crowd at Yankee Stadium in 1939, faced with an incurable disease that would end up taking his life 2 years later. It is one of the most tragic stories in the history of the game, and one that still chokes me up a little bit whenever I see that clip. What gets lost in all this is this guy was the greatest first baseman in the history of baseball. One of the greatest players ever. So I want to honor this guy. Let's do that today. And let me introduce the magnificent Lou Gehrig.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Lou Gehrig. Lou replaced Wally Pipp at first base for the Yankees on June the 1st, 1925. The rookie hit 20 home runs, showing power and aggressiveness like this, and became an instant star. No player ever attracted more personal affection and admiration than the muscular ex-New York high school boy who spent 10 historic years in the Yankee batting order next to Babe Ruth. With more than 1,200 home runs between them, they were the greatest 1-2 punch of their time, and perhaps of any time.
The Iron Horse was a model of consistent excellence from 1923 to 1939. The perfect contrast to the bombastic Bambino. He quietly led by example and compiled some of the greatest numbers we've ever seen from a first baseman. A 113.8 WAR, a career .340 hitter with a .447 on-base percentage. This guy compiled 2,721 hits, hit 493 home runs, and compiled 1,995 RBI, 1,888 runs. He was disciplined at the plate with an insane walk-to-strikeout ratio, 1,508 walks, 790 strikeouts. That combination of production and power, when coupled with that plate discipline, is just ridiculous. If you look at some of his deeper ratios, a 1.080 OPS and a 179 OPS plus, meaning he was 79% better than the average offensive player of his era. Gehrig won 2 MVP awards, 3 home run titles, a batting title, and a Triple Crown. He played in 2,130 consecutive games, a record that would stand for 56 years until Cal Ripken would come along and break his record in 1995. He produced peak WAR seasons of 11.9 in 1927, 9.5 in 1928, a 9.6 WAR in 1930, a 10.1 WAR in 1934, and a 9.7 WAR in 1936. In the postseason, Mr. Gehrig was an absolute terror. In 34 World Series games, hitting .361 with a .483 on-base percentage. In those 34 games, hitting 10 home runs, driving in 35, and scoring 30 runs. leading his New York Yankees to 6 World Series championships. Most baseball fans are familiar with Gehrig's tragic diagnosis of ALS and that it ended his career prematurely at the age of 35. The speech he gave at Yankee Stadium in 1939 will forever be seared into the minds and the hearts of baseball fans everywhere because of the grace, the humility, the courage, and the gratitude that he showed. Let's just take a second to honor Mr. Gehrig as I play this clip.
For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad brag. Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. When you look around, wouldn't you consider it privilege to associate yourself with such a fine-looking man as is standing in uniform in this ballpark today? That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
Lou Gehrig would pass away 2 years after delivering that speech and was inducted into the Hall of Fame almost immediately via special election. Before we get into my Gehrig PC here, I just want to say that one of the true joys of this countdown for me has been the collaborations, the guest contributions that I've gotten on some of these videos from collectors, fellow content creators that I legitimately admire and respect. And today is no exception. I am very proud to present Mr. Mike Moynihan, who is a huge fan, admirer, and collector of Lou Gehrig. Take it away, Mike.
Yo, and hello everybody. Mike here, and Al wanted me to come on and talk a little bit about Lou Gehrig, so I'll make this brief, but he is my favorite player and has been for a while, ever since I got into vintage, as I learned more and more about different players from the Golden Age era, the pre-war era. I just really gravitated towards Lou Gehrig's story. He seems like such a humble guy. I mean, he played in the shadow of Babe Ruth, probably the greatest player of all time, and he was so good. If you go look at Lou Gehrig's stats, I mean, he was unbelievable. It was amazing. They basically had the 2 best players in the league hitting right behind each other. Lou Gehrig was batting 4th, Babe Ruth, of course, batting 3rd in that amazing Yankees lineup. And it's great because Lou Gehrig only has like 6 cards that you can buy that were kind of mainstream cards. He has a 32 US Caramel, 33 Gowdy. He has 2 different card numbers. They're really the same picture, same card. That counts as 2, I guess. He has 2 1934 Gowdies. So there's just not a lot, and he's got a 33 DeLong. So there's just not a lot of cards out there of Gehrig, which makes it easy to collect, and also him very popular. Gehrig was also you could get Lou Gehrig autographs. They were not crazy hard. They're super expensive, but he was in the era of Ruth being a signer and ushering in autographs being normal. I happen to have a Lou Gehrig here. I'll show it. It is a multi-signed piece with the Yankees. You've got George Selkirk on there, Ben Chapman, Tony Lazzari, another difficult autograph Hall of Famer, Lou Gehrig, and then Frank Prezzetti. So this is my only Lou Gehrig autograph, but it's a great one, and I'm just proud to own it. So there you go. That's my Lou Gehrig story. Hope you enjoy that. Thanks, Al, for letting me be a part of your video. We'll talk to you guys soon. Keep collecting.
Thanks so much for joining me on this video, Mike. I am truly touched. What a beautiful example of Gehrig's signature, one that I'm hoping to add to my collection someday, but for budgetary reasons, it'll have to wait a bit. But if you haven't found Mike's channel, Baseball Collector on YouTube, he's a pillar of the community and maybe the pillar of the YouTube community. So again, thanks, Mike. Check out his channel if you have not yet. Okay, on to my items for Gehrig. Let's start with the playing days. This is one of the most cherished pieces of my collection, as you can imagine. This is a mid-career Lou Gehrig from 1931, the W517. hand cut in a PSA 3, a slightly oversized issue. Would have been distributed in a kind of a row of 3 images that would have all been cut by hand. These were all blank back, but this is a really clean copy, one that I thankfully bought before the pandemic craze. Because cards like this have gone up and they have not come back down. So very thankful to have purchased this one when I did. But just a beautiful smiling image of Gehrig. There's a couple different versions of these. Some of them are more sepia toned. This is more of the traditional black and white, which I do prefer because there's a little better contrast on these than the kind of the tinted out sepia version. So I really much prefer this version to the lighter sepia tone. But just a really beautiful, you know, mid-career playing days issue, of which, as Mike mentioned, there aren't many playing days issues for Gehrig. This is not one of the mainstream issues, but I would argue it's, you know, every bit as aesthetically beautiful as any of his more mainstream issues. These are very low population. These are not easy to come by. PSA has graded a total of 93 of these, and in a PSA 3, there are only 6 with 39 higher. So these do not grow on trees and they are not getting any cheaper. So I'm just really happy to have picked up a really nice image, a portrait shot of one of the greatest to ever play the sport and one of the most iconic to ever play the sport. So that is my Playing Days Gehrig that I'm immensely proud to own. Okay, next up is a really nice early 2000s game used relic, bat relic for Lou Gehrig. I think one of the most beautiful relic cards that exists for Gehrig. He's not in a lot of the sets, but this is a 2003 Topps Gallery Hall of Fame relic that, you know, was one of those early 2000s, what explicitly states this is from a game used bat for Lou Gehrig. So not like the modern relics that do not specify anything. This one actually says game used on it, which means a whole heck of a lot more to me as a collector than one of those nondescript mystery pieces of lumber or mystery jerseys. I'm really not a fan of those, but this one's really special because they didn't, I mean, there can't be many more Lou Gehrig bats being shipped up. That's all I have to say. But this is all 9.5 subgrades. These are tough. I mean, to get high grades on these thick relic cards. PSA has only graded 8 of these. BGS has only graded 12. PSA has never graded a 10. 3 9s, no 10s. And this is only one of 5 BGS 9.5s with none higher. So pretty special to me to have a high grade Gehrig relic. I just love it. And it's a beautiful image. Very artful pose. I like the design of these. Just very tasteful. So that's my Gehrig game used bat relic. All right, well that is what I have for Mr. Gehrig. This has been truly an honor. Thank you so much for following along this countdown. Thanks for watching. I look forward to marching on to number 6 next weekend. Until then, keep collecting and stay iconic.